You keep the stream going. I got this.
We're trying to get all of it. We're trying to get all of it. Got the memo. Got the memo right there.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here today. We're going to make some announcements about major investments in infrastructure for our state using some COVID relief funding that was actually appropriated by Congress this past December. But before I do that, I want to take a moment just to speak directly to the state, but primarily to the families of the 5 individuals who died and the families of those 8 individuals who are still missing in the Secor tragedy. First of all, we're very thankful that I believe the number of recovered, rescued, and who remain alive were 6, and we're thankful for that. And one of those individuals is in serious condition in the hospital. But all of these individuals, all of these families, certainly we want to lift them up in prayer. My heart goes out to you, and I know that this has been extremely excruciating and painful, and it's just been a difficult process from every perspective. And obviously, there's nothing that I can say will take that pain away. But I wanted to. I know about the Coast Guard's announcement today about discontinuing further search operations. I think as of sunset. Starting last Wednesday morning, I've been in frequent contact with the Coast Guard and Vice Admiral John Nadeau, and making sure that he knew that if there was any role that we could play in terms of personnel or assets, whether it was in a primary role or supporting role, we were prepared to do that. Of course, this has been a very challenging situation from the beginning, given the weather that caused it and the bad weather, the seas, the winds, and so forth that continued for days afterwards. And I know that they are working to do what they can to find the 8 individuals who are still missing. And I do want to thank the Coast Guard for all of the work that they've done, and call upon the people of Louisiana to lift everyone involved up in prayer. Now back to the COVID infrastructure funding. As I mentioned, in December, Congress passed the 2020 Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, which allocates $216 million towards road and infrastructure projects throughout the state of Louisiana. This funding is going to greatly benefit Louisiana's transportation system and help push forward some much needed repairs, improvements, projects that have been on the books for a while. These funds will allow DOTD to enhance our existing roadways as well as create new infrastructure in order to better meet the needs of our state and make sure that our economy very quickly moves forward and gets back to thriving. But we also want thriving communities and families and motorists. That's what this is all about. Since January of 2016, my administration has invested more than $3.9 billion in infrastructure projects throughout the state, more than 1,600 projects benefiting more than 5,000 miles of roadway. I and all of these legislators behind me are extremely grateful for the work that Congress did, especially our delegation. And I do want to single out Senator Cassidy for his efforts to ensure that the departments of transportation all across the country receive this relief because of the impact that COVID-19 had on traffic. And as you know, the way we support our infrastructure system is through revenues generated by those who use our system. And when that use dropped, so did the funding. And that's what this is designed to make up for. And as part of that COVID relief bill approved in December, Congress passed a $1.4 trillion relief package that includes $10 billion to be allocated by formula among all state departments of transportation. And we're going to continue in Louisiana to make transportation a priority and ensure that our motorists have the infrastructure they need to access goods and services and their traveling needs, and to do that safely. To that extent, I'm also sharing that I'm continuing my commitment to use surplus dollars in a way that makes a lot of sense too. And so one of those things that we're going to be proposing is that $35 million from last year's surplus go towards our match obligation transportation trust funds that we're entitled to. This is something we've done for several years now, and certainly we're going to continue that. And any other infrastructure projects, whether it's for highways, CPRA, state buildings, and so forth, from surplus, those are going to be one-time projects because surplus, by definition, one-time money. And for those of you keeping score, yes, we're obviously going to put into the unfunded accrued liability and into the budget stabilization funds those portions of the surplus that are required to go there. I'm going to ask Dr. Wilson now to come up and tell you more specifically about the specific projects that are going to be funded through the coronavirus relief funds that were appropriated in December. And I'm not planning to come back up and speak, so I did want to take just a moment and thank all the legislators behind me and many more in the building who are not out here today for working with us and working with DOTD to make sure that we have a list of projects that are ready to go, and then they help us to marry the funding to those projects so that we can move forward. And it's really important when Congress has money for transportation that we have those projects developed and that they're ready to go, because they always want to see those projects get started just as soon as possible. And that's why Sean is going to make the announcements about these specific projects. Sean?
Thank you, Governor. I will tell you that we're excited to receive these funds, as other DOTs around the country have also prioritized these projects. We've referred back to our Highway Priority Program and a number of projects that are going to set us up in the future to use additional resources to deliver these projects. Louisiana's share of the funding that Congress has allocated comes to about $216 million, intended to replace funds that were lost as a result of a reduction in traffic due to the coronavirus. And it was done so based on a national formula where we get resources on an annual basis. Of that dollar amount, $123 million will be allotted for what we're calling major projects, major investments within that time frame. They include adding $30 million to the public subsidy that Governor Edwards has already allocated for the Calcasieu River Bridge. He put up $85 million in capital outlay a couple of years ago, and that's a part of our P3 procurement. We also have a portion of widening on I-20 in Ouachita Parish that we're going to use some of these funds for. And then in working with members of the delegation out of Acadiana, we're allocating money to the I-49 connector project in Lafayette that is expected to soon complete its environmental process, and that'll be the first portion of funds dedicated to move directly into construction. And then we're also going to do an I-20 overlay from Monkhouse Drive to Greenwood Road and an I-20, I-49 interchange in Caddo Parish. Another major investment will be using some of the funds to relocate utilities along 190 in St. Landry Parish. That is a major rehabilitation of a U.S. highway where utilities sit actually in the roadbed itself. Of the balance of the funds, we're going to allocate $36 million to 17 preservation projects from the Transportation Highway Priority Program, and those will be spread out across a number of parishes. $25 million will be allocated to the Department of Transportation districts. They're going to do two different things with them. In some cases, in all cases rather, they're going to be asked to address a congestion issue within their districts, as well as replace aged equipment needed for maintaining highways. Those are going to be everything from sweepers to equipment to clean culverts and other things that will help us deal with additional water and flooding situations. Specifically directed in the legislation is $11 million to go towards electric vehicle charging stations. It's a national initiative of President Biden and Secretary Buttigieg to prepare us for the onslaught of electric vehicles, and developing charging stations for fleets is a major portion of that. Then there's money allocated to communities that have greater than 200,000 people, and we have 4 in Louisiana. And these are going to be what we call MPO dollars, where $19.9 million will be distributed based on a formula to New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and Shreveport for those MPOs to allocate to projects in their areas. And so that's a compilation of how we're going to spend the money that was directly appropriated to USDOT, given to us through the Federal Highway Administration. I would like to express appreciation to the congressional delegation and the members of our House and Senate Transportation Committees and their leadership, as well as the leadership in the House and the Senate. They've been a tremendous resource for this Department of Transportation and Development, and we look forward to working with them to address other critical needs. And lastly, I will tell you, we will apply all of these funds to the most needed projects throughout all of the regions of Louisiana and further this administration's commitment to building economy through infrastructure investment. And so with that, Governor, I'm happy to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. I appreciate the work that you do and all of the folks at DOTD. We've got time for a couple of questions, perhaps, and then we'll get back to work inside the building, if you have any. All right.
I've got a different topic. Governor, do you support the centralized sales tax bill?
I do. Yes.
Do you support the 4 bills that have been proposed that would restrict transgender people?
Yeah, you know, that's going to be a long answer, but the simple matter is I do not. We don't have a problem in Louisiana today in the sense that we have individuals out there who are trans females trying to participate in sports. Secondly, we know that there will be an adverse impact to the state with respect to the NCAA and other things. But first and foremost, I am really concerned about emotionally fragile people. And the idea that the weight of the state would be put behind something that to me is unnecessary and discriminatory and very hurtful for those individuals when there's not a compelling reason to do it. And so I'm hopeful that that the legislature will not see fit to advance those bills.
Any opinions on the bill to increase the number of Supreme Court justices?
No, I don't. In fact, I haven't even read those bills yet. Look, I want to thank you all for coming out. I think our next press availability is going to be on Thursday of this week, and then on Wednesday we'll have the radio talk show. Thank you all so much.